Only on NBC5 tonight, Jackson County Commissioner Doug Breidenthal says he's worried the ongoing investigations into alleged conflict of interest, misuse of public funds, and fraud will hurt him in next month's election.
And if he isn't reelected to the Board of Commissioners, Breidenthal tells NBC5's Craig Smolin he's considering filing a lawsuit against Jackson County.
How about the relationship between you and Danny Jordan, the administrator? What is that like today?
Well, the administrator, we work well together. You know, there's stress in the office, sure. I still felt I was being coerced by the administrator in this process. Like I said, I went to the sheriff immediately when I was told to turn myself in for these activities with this campaign, and I felt I was betrayed.
And the activities you're talking about are
the campaign activities and
okay.
the account.
The stuff
I really
covered.
felt
Okay.
I was betrayed in that process because I worked very closely with him in the spring of 2014 and to be able to do this, and he encouraged me to run for this office, encouraged me because of the power that this office really holds.
I imagine it's hard to work with someone who you clearly feel Danny has betrayed you.
At this point
is that
in time,
the right way
I
of phrasing it? That's how
I
you
think
feel?
that's the best way to say it, because he encouraged me to go down this path, and I felt like I was being set up to this moment. Because he had full knowledge and he knew of everything, but yet claimed he just found out about it and asked, and it just really blew my mind.
How do you two work together today, tomorrow, and as you're running for re-election? I mean, you two have, I mean, there's only 3 commissioners. The administrator is obviously working with you guys quite a bit. How do you guys do this? How do you get the job done?
You know, we do the job. It's a professional environment. I still respect Danny for his abilities. But what it's done is it's allowed me to say, okay, I'm not going to take things for face value anymore. I'm going to take a deeper, harder look at this. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we setting the structure up the way it is? Are we moving down a path that's really sustainable for Jackson County? So it's actually allowed me to be a little more critical in my work and not so just trusting, and it's been because of the learning curve.
And aren't you saying what Danny's job is? That to make sure everything is above reproach?
I would say Danny's job is to do what the commissioners delegate their authority from themselves to Danny to do. So currently under our charter here in Jackson County, the commissioners are responsible for all the administrative work, all the legislative work, and the quasi-judicial work over the land. And we use staff to be able to get that taken care of. Over the time, the commissioners have given away most of their authority or delegated that authority to the administrator. And I've been a little bit critical that I think that the commissioners have given too much of that authority to the administrator. Our structure of our government needs to be looked at a little bit.
Enacting this kind of change that you're talking about is obviously a very large-scale operation, if you will.
Right.
So, you know, irrespective of that,
and
is there anything you would have done differently through this whole process and everything that we've covered, you know, going back a couple of years now as this whole investigation unfolds?
You know, I think if I'd done anything different, and if I'd done something wrong, I want to know it. Because the last thing I want to do is do something wrong. I have a career with the fire department, with the state. You know, I have served the citizens of Jackson County for 25 years. And I have held myself in a very, very above piece trying to do it right. Now, would I do something different? I don't know that I would, because I went and I asked for permission. I told everybody what I was doing, set the public account up in the right appropriate location. I would probably have taken a moment with the Association of Oregon Counties and said, okay, you told me you have a letter that says this is the way it's, from the Ethics Commission, saying this is the way it's supposed to be done. What I would have done at that point in time, I said, show me the letter. Because from what I have found out, that letter didn't exist. And it was based on a conversation that they had had on the previous campaign. And so I was kind of duped in a way, I believe, by the Association of Oregon Counties in this particular case, because the information really wasn't there that they said was there. So I probably would have done more due diligence to make sure that I wasn't being set up, so to speak.
So how does this end?
I think it's going to be just fine. I think we're going to move forward with this. As we look at this next year, it's going to be interesting. In May, I assume the presidency of the National Association of Counties. And that is a position that is going to have a very big influence for the citizens of Jackson County.
Is that a position you can hold irrespective of whether you're a Jackson County Commissioner or not? Because you're running for re-election here
You
at
have
the
to
same
be-
time, 40-something days. Is the
You
primary.
have to be an elected official to maintain that office. So we would lose that if that went away.
And you have these two investigations hanging over you, if you will, for lack of a better word. But does that concern you? Because does it sound like we're going to get? Do you feel like we're going to get a resolution from the ODOJ and the Ethics
Well, I think
Commission before
eventually,
May?
oh, before May, no, I doubt if anything like that would happen before May. I don't expect anything to happen quickly on this, but I've talked to a lot of attorneys. I've talked to a lot of people. They've reviewed the whole process, and basically said, Doug, you haven't really done anything here. This is crazy. We don't understand why this complaint was even filed. So I have one attorney basically say, yeah, let's go ahead and bring this to court. This would almost be fun, because all these different things can get to come out that can only come out in that venue that you can't do in a public arena, but we can do it in courtroom.
Is that something you would consider, depending on what happens in next month's election?
You know, depending, yeah, very much so. Because I honestly believe this was a smear campaign tactic to be able to weaken me in this election process. The timing of it, the fact that they had this information in spring of 2014, but waited until 2 weeks after I filed for election.
You mentioned smear campaign. Who would be the designer of this so-called, or in your words, smear campaign?
You know, I couldn't say who the designer is, but if you look at the bigger picture, and anybody took a moment and sort of studied timelines and everything and how everything happens, I think they can come to their own conclusions on that.
Is Danny Jordan part of that group?
I wouldn't want to say one way or the other.
If you'd like to see the interview in its entirety, log on to our website, KOBI5.com.